What's going on, guys? In today's class, we're going to be focusing a lot on our hip abduction and adduction, which is moving the hip both away and towards the midline of our body. We're still going to get started with our cars. So Emily here is going to come come up into a kneeling position. So we're going to go tall kneeling to start. She's going to make gentle fists with her hands, clasping her fists at about 30%. So a little bit of tension. And we're going to start by tucking our chin down to our chest. We're going to start going to the left. So she's going to take that chin, trace that left collarbone until she gets to her left shoulder. Look over that left shoulder and then let the head drift back, pointing that chin to the ceiling. When she gets to her right shoulder, she's going to look over that right shoulder and then trace it back down to center. And we're going to flow right into our second rep on this side. So continuing to the left, look over that left shoulder, let the head start to drift back. Looking over that right shoulder, tracing that right collarbone back down to center. And then now we'll reset in between, and then we're going to hit our two the opposite direction. So chin back down to chest, tracing that collarbone to the right, moving at 1 mile per hour here. If you find there's any kind of sticking points or spots you either kind of want to speed up through, you kind of just feel you need to spend a little bit more time on it, feel free to kind of slow it down, spend a little bit more time in those areas as we're working on these big pain-free circles. And as she finishes up this second rep on our second direction, we're going to stay on the spine but move down to our thoracic spine. So stay in this kneeling position. She's going to cross her arms over. She's going to make sure her glutes and her core are engaged. We're going to be focusing on our thoracic spine, which is this upper mid portion of the spine. So what we don't want to see is arching that lower back and those hips moving all over the place. So the hips are going to stay perfectly still. We're going to start by folding forward, so rounding that upper back, and we're going to rotate to the right as far as we can. From here, we're going to lean to the right, laterally flex, and then again, making sure those glutes and that core is engaged. Lower back stays still as we extend on back. A little bit less range here than you think. When we get to the left, we're going to rotate, and then lean to the left, and then fold on back through to center. Continuing this rotation to the right, then lean to the right, extending on back again. Core stays tight, not arching from that lower back. Rotating left, leaning left, folding on through to center, and then resetting in between. A good cue, if you are having trouble kind of keeping that lower back still, is if you grab a yoga block or a pillow, and if you squeeze those legs together into that yoga block, it's another good way to create some radiation, some tension, to really minimize the movement coming from down here. So reversing direction, she's going to fold on back through to center, rotate to the left, lean to the left, and again, as we extend on back, keeping those glutes engaged, core stays tight. Rotate to the right, lean to the right before we fold on through to center. Continuing here for one more rotation. Again, really working on the upper mid thoracic spine, that area that gets pretty tight as we're kind of sitting at our desk all day, sitting at our cars all day. Everything we do tends to be kind of in this rounded forward position. So making sure that we do get that extension back. Stay in this kneeling position. We're actually going to come to a half kneeling position. So with her right knee up, we're going to go with her left shoulder. So she's going to take that left arm, go palm facing up and reach across. So we're going to start in this external rotated position with that bicep pointing up towards the ceiling. So keeping that arm up, she's going to bring that arm in front of her face. And then she's going to get that arm by the ear, then driving that arm back as far as she can, keeping this core nice and tight. She's going to internally rotate until eventually that thumb faces backwards, palm is at her hip. And then she's going to reverse it as far back as she can. When she can't come back any farther, then she's going to let the arm start to rotate back. Bicep by the ear, and then continue to wring out that towel. So point that bicep nice and high as we slice across the body into adduction. And then one more time, palm faces up, arm passes in front of the body, rest of the body staying nice and still. Get that arm nice and tight as we rotate internally. Again, wringing out that towel, trying to really move just from our shoulder as best we can. Then as we come on back into extension, rotating back to the front, bicep by the ear. Keep on rotating that bicep towards the ceiling. And then we can switch sides and hit two on the other side. So we're going to switch our stance. So left knee in front, right arm, palm faces up. So square up the shoulder blades or shoulders a little bit. So we're facing the front. Bring that arm up, bicep by the ear. Start to internally rotate that shoulder. If you find you have any kind of painful areas, what I want you to think about is carving around the pain. So if you get to here and this hurts, we're just gonna back it off a little bit. And as soon as you can, get back to that biggest pain-free circle. But that's all we're working on right now. And I cannot emphasize that enough, is that biggest pain-free circle. Again, as we externally rotate back to the front and continue with our second one. So palm faces up, bicep by the ear, get that arm back into flexion best you can. And then internally rotate, thumb faces back, palm at the hip, reverse into extension. And then arm passes back in front, bicep back towards the ceiling, and good. So with our shoulder blades, our scapula, what we're gonna be doing is we'll drop back down into a kneeling position. If you have seams on the middle, the side of your pants, Emily does have seams here, she's gonna place her middle finger on the middle seam. So her hands can and will move up and down, and her shoulders and shoulder blades can move forward and back, protract and retract, but I don't want her fingers to move in front or in back of that midline of those pants. So we're gonna start by depressing those shoulder blades, trying to reach those hands down to the floor. And again, keeping those middle fingers on that seam. She's gonna separate her shoulder blades, roll them forward, protract, really get some separation here. Keeping them protracted, she's gonna elevate, get those shoulders up by the ears, and then keeping them elevated, we're gonna retract, squeeze those shoulder blades, and now keeping them retracted, we're gonna drive them down to the floor, depress, and then roll them forward, drive them up, squeeze them together, drive them down, and as we roll them forward again, we're gonna pause here and we're gonna reset and hit to the opposite direction. So squeeze them together, now elevate, drive those shoulders up to those ears, protract, really get some separation back between those shoulder blades, depress, drive them down to the floor, reach, 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 squeeze them together, elevate best you can, drive them forward, and we're gonna finish in this depressed down state. And then we can relax. Moving on to our cat, camel, cat, cows. We're gonna drop into a quadruped position. So I'm actually gonna have you rotate facing that way. And so again, we wanna be thinking about moving one vertebrae at a time as best we can. So we're gonna start in this neutral position. We're gonna go first into a globally rounded position, but thinking one vertebrae at a time. So we can reset. She's gonna start with her head. So she's gonna tuck that head down, start looking kind of between her knees, and then with this upper back first, she's gonna think about pushing that upper back towards the ceiling, rounding, as we work down to that mid back, moving just with my fingers, then that lower back's gonna start to round, finally that tailbone's gonna start to tuck under, and then again, we're gonna go head to toe, but we're gonna go from this rounded position to an arched position. So again, now that head is gonna be the first thing to move. She's gonna start looking that head up, and then start driving that upper back down to the ground, getting arched, arching that upper back, working down to that mid back, starting to push that belly button down to the floor, pushing that lower back down, and then finally rolling those hips, letting that tailbone arch. So she's gonna pick a good spot to look at on the wall in front of her. That is gonna be the last thing to move. So we're gonna go now tailbone up to the head from this arch into a rounded position. So she's gonna start by rolling those hips back, and then we're gonna start rounding this lower back. Start sucking that belly button up, pushing that mid back up towards the ceiling. Working to that upper back, really reaching as high as she can. As that upper back starts to round, she's gonna let that head drift under. And now the last one, we're gonna finish with the head. So starting with the tailbone, she's gonna start to roll the tailbone, roll those hips, and start sucking that belly button down to the floor. Getting some nice extension here in this lower spine, mid spine, again, one vertebra at a time, to that upper spine, and then finally the head is going to lift forward. We're going to stay in this quadruped position for our hips. So we'll start with the left hip. She's going to start with that left hip. Rest of the body's going to stay still, driving that left knee up to that left elbow. Keeping the back nice and still. She's going to open up that knee to the outside, and now she's going to start to internally rotate that hip. So we're going to keep the knee where it is. She's going to drive that foot up towards the ceiling as we come on back into extension. Again, back stays as still as we can, making sure we're hitting that extension, so foot to the ceiling before we come on back to that starting position. Reset if you have to, and now we're going to reverse it. So getting into extension, using that glute, keeping the back still to get that heel up, up, up. Now we're going to externally rotate. Open up that knee to the side. Again, back and opposite hip staying still. Drive that knee up as high up to that elbow as we can. Reset. We're gonna do one more on this side. So again, left knee drives up to left elbow. Open up that knee to the outside. Now internally rotate. Drive that foot to the ceiling, foot to the ceiling, foot to the ceiling. Come into extension. Squeeze that glute and then lower back down to that starting position. And then as we extend, heel to the ceiling, now we're gonna externally rotate. Drive that knee up to the side, making sure body stays still, other hip stays still. Knee to elbow. And then, good. And I want you to face the camera on this one as we hit our right side. So right knee now drives up to right elbow. Right hip opens up. Right knee opens up. And then internally rotate. So driving that foot up, 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 up into extension. And then coming back down. And again, we want to make sure that we're just moving from the one side that we're working on. So pause for a second. What I see a lot of is either moving from the back or the opposite hip, where now this is the hip that's moving while this is the hip I want to be focusing on. So it's going to look like you have less range of motion. The range of motion that we're focused on is the exact same, but it's the true range of motion that we're really focusing on, we're looking at. So as we come on back, back stays still. We extend on back, externally rotate, open up the knee, drive that knee up to that elbow, and then reset as we go into our last one. So it may look like she lost some range of motion, but it's that pure hip function that we're looking at. So now again, right knee to right elbow, open up to the outside, internally rotate that foot to the ceiling, come on back into extension, reset down to that starting position, and then coming on back, extend up to the ceiling, externally rotate that knee to the side, drive that knee up to that elbow, and then relax. Finishing up our cars, we're gonna flip over onto our butts. Take a seat. We're gonna go knees and ankles. So starting with our right side, we're gonna go right forearm underneath right knee. We're gonna start with our tibia. So we're gonna clasp our hands together on this one. So best you can, I want the movement coming from this kind of this tibia, this shin bone basically. So think your ankle is in a cast. So we're gonna start by externally rotating, so pointing that shin out to the side. We're gonna think ovals on this one. So we're gonna extend that foot up about 75%. Now we're gonna internally rotate, and now we're going to flex it down. Keeping it flexed, we're gonna externally rotate and extend, internally rotate and flex. Keeping it internally rotated, we're just gonna reverse it. So from here, we're going to extend the knee, externally rotate, flex it down, internally rotate, extend, externally rotate, and flex. Right arm stays where it is. Left hand, we're gonna clasp the right shin, and then right hand braces onto left forearm. So now I really wanna lock in that tibia, and now we are gonna focus on the ankle. So give yourself a little bit more room to work. We're gonna start by dorsiflexing that foot up to the ceiling, and then we're gonna go clockwise first. So she's gonna make as big of a circle as she can, pointing away, coming down, in, back up to the top. Again, nice big pain-free circles. Might get some snap, crackle, pops on these ones. And as we finish up this second rotation this direction, we're just gonna reverse and hit two the opposite direction. If you find, again, there's an area that you kind of have some trouble with, so for me, it's because as I'm going in and down, I almost start to cramp up in that foot. So it's a sign I really need to spend a little bit more time in that area, whether it be now, whether it be after, just kind of working out that area, spending a little bit more time there as I'm almost cramping up right now. As we finish up that second side, we're gonna go right to our tibia. So again, left forearm underneath left knee, hands clasped together. We're going to externally rotate. Again, movement best we can coming from that shin as we extend on up. Internally rotate to the center, flex it on down, externally rotate and extend. Internally rotate, flex, keep it right here, reversing direction. So starting internally rotated, extending on up, externally rotating, flex, internally rotate, extend, externally rotate, and flex. Now taking that left hand to right forearm, right hand to left shin, locking in that tibia. We're doing our two. We'll go clockwise directions to start. Drive it in, drive it down to plantar flexion. Come on out to the side, back up to dorsiflexion. Just hitting two clockwise. get back up to the top, reversing directions and hitting 2 counterclockwise to finish up our cars routine. All right, so moving into our first section, we're gonna set up in a 90-90 position. So we're gonna go right leg in front. We're gonna keep a couple yoga blocks nearby. We don't need them for this very first move, but we're gonna need them for the second and third move in this position. So what we're gonna be doing to start, we're gonna kick that back leg back just a little bit. We're gonna find our comfortable position and then keeping our back nice and straight. She's gonna not think about collapsing over that front leg, but she's gonna think about getting long over this front leg until we get a nice gentle stretch in that front right hip. So in this position, we're gonna hold it for about 2 minutes, just focusing on some nice deep breath as we go into our pails and rails section. So starting with a static stretch, we're just gonna let our muscles kind of relax. As I cue us in a minute or two, what we're gonna be doing is thinking about scale beneath both the knee and the ankle. For today's purposes, I want to think about weighting them equally. If we're focusing a little bit more on rotation, I do typically like to load up the ankle a little bit more. But for right now, I want to think about equal pressure down through that shin as we drive through the floor. So we're going to start at about 20%. We're going to gradually increase 40, 60, 80, get to our safest and greatest pain-free contraction. Hold that for 10 seconds. And then we're gonna reverse direction. So she's gonna think about unweighting that scale, driving that leg up to her chest, pulling herself deeper into deeper positions while keeping that back in a good position. So I really can't stress that enough. You might see in some yoga classes where people are kind of just collapsed over, or any really type of class, doesn't have to be yoga, but in that kind of collapsed, rounded position where they're not getting, their spine's not in a good position. So we're really focused on just nice neutral spine alignment. We take another couple deep breaths in through the nose, expand that diaphragm, and then out through the nose, making sure that we're staying nice and relaxed. And so now, again, that scale underneath the knee, the ankle, we're gonna start driving that shin down into the floor at about 20%. So nice and gentle to start. And then gradually increase, so think radial dial, crank it up to about 40%. A little bit harder now, 60%. Matching that tension, the rest of the body, so core stays nice and tight. As you ramp it up to 80%, you might start getting some shakes in the body. And then as hard as we can, that greatest pain-free contraction, drive that shin down through the floor, dent the floor, hold it for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now unweight that scale. Drive that shin up. If you can actually get movement, great. If not, just start pulling yourself down deeper into that stretch. Keep on pulling. Make sure that back's staying nice and neutral. Hold it for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and freeze. Relax the muscles, but capture this new end range of motion. You see she was able to get a good amount deeper into the basement of that stretch, get a little bit deeper, open up some range of motion there. So we're gonna do another few breaths here. Nice big inhales through the nose, and then nice smooth exhale through the nose. And so we're gonna stay in this 90-90 position on this leg, but we can sit up, we can relax out. If you have to straighten out the leg to shake it out for a sec, go for it. But otherwise, we're gonna stay right here. So we're gonna you need at least one object. Yoga blocks are great. If you have two, it's just gonna speed up the process a little bit. So we're gonna place our front yoga block in front of the front leg. If you have two, you can place the other one right here for now. Otherwise, you can just switch them over. So we're gonna be doing some front leg adduction, extension hovers. We're gonna be lifting just like we did in that rails contraction where we lifted up. We're gonna lift up, extend our knee over the block, rotate so our toes are facing the ceiling, stay up off the ground, flex that knee back in, and then lower down. So right hand can just stay out to the side, left hand really wherever's comfortable. So as long as she's in a nice braced, secure position, good with me. So making sure body stays nice and still. she's going to inhale, set the position, and then lift that shin. Extend that knee out, point those toes to the ceiling so we're externally rotating as best we can. Now flex that knee back in, lower down under control. Second rep, we're going to lift, extend that knee, stay up off the ground, flex it back in, lower nice and slow under control. Third rep, lift, extend, flex, lower. We're going to do 2 more here. We're going to lift, extend that knee out, flex that knee back, lower down under control. Trying to keep that torso as best we can in one position. Last one on this side, lift, extend it out, flex it back in, and lower. So right knee's going to take a break. Very similar format, working off of our back leg. So again, if you have 2, working off this yoga block. If you only got 1, just transfer it over. But same format. Now we're just going to be lifting our left shin, so working more into that adduction. Starting already from an internal rotated position, but same deal. Left shin is going to try and lift, so she's going to try and lift knee and ankle at the same time. As high as you can, extend out, rotate those toes to the ceiling, flex it back in, and then lower back down. So one thing I do want to notice, or do want to mention that I did notice, is that back knee coming up off the ground. So I want you to think about driving that knee down through the floor. If you are having a hard time getting into that position, we can take this block and place it underneath the knee to elevate a little bit, if that's going to be a little bit more comfortable. But with our second rep now, front knee down through the ground, lift our back shin, extend that foot out and rotate, flex that knee back under control, lower back down. So another kind of pointer is if I'm out on my side, it's going to be a whole lot easier than if I am upright. So even if that means just kicking that leg or that arm out a little bit just to base out, find that base of support that works for you. Third rep now, we're going to lift, extend the knee, rotate, flex, lower down. 2 more on this side. Lift that shin, extend, flex, lower. 1 more. Lift, extend, flex, and lower under control. We're going to do 1 more set on this side, and then we'll switch and repeat these 2 moves on the other side. So taking our front yoga block in front of our shin. A couple ways to make this harder are if we, 1, elevate the block. We've got 3 settings here. 2, if I lean forward, I can't get my shin up from here. Conversely, to make it easier, if I lean back, I can really get my leg up a whole lot higher. So finding that spot where we're hovering an inch or 2 above our block. But starting this second set, we're going to lift that front shin, extend, rotate those toes to the ceiling, flex that knee back in, lower down under control. Adjust position if you have to. Lift that front leg, extend it out, flex it back in, lower under control. Third rep, lift, extend, flex, lower. 2 more, lift, extend, flex it back in, lower under control. Moving on to our trail leg, that back leg. Same setup, lifting that front shin, extending that knee out, rotating toes to the ceiling, flexing that knee back in, lowering down under control. Second rep, lift, extend that foot out, flex it back in, lower. Third rep, lift, extend, bring it back in, lower under control. 2 more, lift, extend out, flex in, lower. Last one on this side, lift that shin, extend, hold it, bring that foot back in, lower down under control. Same thing on the other side. We're going to switch our setup. So now instead of our right leg in front, our left shin is in front. Getting set up again in that 90-90 position. Bracing ourselves. So starting with our pails and rails. So we don't need the blocks quite yet. But making sure that back is in a good position. And then reach out, get long. So how far in front of your leg can you get? How far over? So another thing Emily's doing a really good job here is her shoulders are kind of almost reached over her knee. So she's not rotated towards that foot, she's rotated towards that knee, kind of cranking those tissues in that front hip a little bit more. Finding that nice gentle stretch, which might not be the same as the other leg. So You might be more comfortable in one position versus the other. My hips certainly are very different. A lot of that's due to sports. It can be due to just anatomy. There's a lot of different reasons, but this asymmetry that you may have side to side, is not uncommon. It's not a bad thing. It definitely might mean I need to spend a little bit more time on one hip versus the other. I might notice if my left hip, I'm lacking external rotation, I might need to spend a little bit more time here outside of these classes, but it's just something to kind of notice. Don't judge yourself side to side, just pay attention to it. So again, our breathing on these, smooth in through the nose, smooth out through the nose, into that diaphragm. Nice relaxed breathing, letting our body know it's okay to be here. Expanding those diaphragms, those rib cages. And then just again, quick refresher, our pales and rails contractions, driving that shin down through the floor, intensifying 20% up to 100%, holding that for 10 seconds, and then reversing directions, pulling yourself deeper, unweighting that scale, driving that shin up off the floor, and then holding that for 10 seconds, freezing, capturing that new range of motion. So we'll start our pales contraction now, driving that shin down into the floor at about 20%. Nice and gentle to start. And then again, dials, not steps, up to 40%. Smooth increases, 45, 50, 55, up to 60%. Making sure that core is staying tight. And as we go up to 80%, you might start getting some shakes in the rest of the body as we start pressuring a little bit harder. And then as hard as we can, that maximum safest contraction, hold it for 10, 9, 8, think about denting the floor, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now make that scale as light as you can. Drive that shin up, 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 up. Pull yourself back down, pull, pull, pull for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and freeze. Capture any new range of motion. If you have more range of motion than you haven't already gotten into, you can get into that range of motion now. Get that breath back under control. Smooth in, smooth out. Return to that even tempo. That nasal breathing is so important for letting our body know it's okay to be here in that parasympathetic kind of relaxated response. And then we can sit on up, grabbing our yoga blocks. Again, if you have two, one in front of the front leg, one in front of the back leg. We're going to be starting with our front leg with these knee extension hovers. So again, trying as best we can, lifting both the knee and the ankle at the same time so we're not kind of off axis. So think lift the shin, brace yourself however you need to. The farther back you lean, the easier it's going to be. The farther forward you lean, and the higher the yoga block, the harder it's going to be. So with that first rep, we're going to set our position, lift that front leg, extend that foot up, rotate those toes towards the ceiling best we can, flex that knee back in, lower down under control. Second rep, lift, extend out, flex it back in, lower. Third rep, lift, extend, flex, lower down. Fourth rep, lift, extend it out, flex it back in, knee and ankle lower at the same time. One more on this side, lift, extend, flex, and lower. Same setup, focusing on that back leg. So now, again, the farther out towards me Emily is, the easier it's going to be. So if she needs to shift herself out, even shifting onto the forearm is going to be kind of the easiest version. So find that spot that's difficult but doable. So lifting now that back leg, extending that back foot, toes towards the ceiling, flexing that knee back in, lower down under control. Second rep, lift, extend, point those feet up, flex it back in, lower. Third rep now, lift, extend out, flex that knee back in, lower down. Again, trying to best we can, knee, ankle touch at the same time. Two more on this side, lift, extend, flex, and under control, knee and ankle touch same time, good. Last one on this side, lift, extend it out, flex it back in, and lower down. Finishing up, we're gonna do one more set on each of these maneuvers. So resetting off of that front leg, set our position, 5 more, lift that front shin, extend that knee, flex it back in, lower under control. Second rep, lift, extend, flex, and lower. Third rep, now lift, extend it out, toes to the ceiling, flex it back in, lower down. Last 2, lift it up, extend it out, flex it back in, and lower. One more, make it our best one. Lift up, extend out, toes to ceiling, under control, flex it back in, under control, lower down. Good. Finishing up 5 now on that left side as we lift that trail leg up, extend that front leg out, flex that knee back in, lower down under control. Second rep now, lift, extend, rotate those toes to the ceiling, flex it back in, lower down. Third rep, lift, extend and rotate, flex it back in, lower under control. Last 2, lift it up, extend it out, peel it back in, lower. Last one, lift, extend out, pull it back in, and lower down. All right, so getting set up for our third section, we're gonna drop into a sideline position. So Emily's gonna roll onto her right side. We need 1 yoga block for this one. To get started, she's gonna flex gently both of her knees. Head can really be supported however she wants. So either on her biceps, fine. If she wants to kind of make a little pillow with her arm, whatever she really needs to do. That top left arm, we are gonna reach in front because I do want a little bit of balance kind of in front of the body. So we're gonna be focusing on this top hip as we do some axial cars. So she's gonna drive that knee up as high as she can. Or the whole leg, excuse me. Whole leg up. She's gonna move her arm so she can see where her knee is, and I'm gonna be able to assist with this one as well. Find a spot on the wall where your knee is. Find that landmark. I don't want your knee to move up and down from here. We're gonna be internally and externally rotating the hip. So from this position, she's going to internally rotate and drive that foot up as high as she can to the ceiling. And then she's gonna externally rotate that foot back down to the floor. Trying again to make sure the back is staying nice and still. As we internally rotate back up to the top, and then externally rotate down to close it. And we're gonna do 1 more. So internally rotate back up, and then externally rotate that foot back down to the floor. She's gonna go ahead now and take that front foot, cross it in front of that bottom leg, and extend that bottom leg straight out. We're gonna grab our yoga block. We're gonna place it right behind that outstretched leg calf. Similar idea to the last ones. The higher the yoga block, the harder it's gonna be. It's gonna be a very similar concept. So we're gonna be doing some adduction, knee flexion hovers. So if she can grab her foot and kind of feel more supported, she's more than welcome to. We're gonna be focusing on this bottom leg. So she's going to first lift that leg as high as she can off the ground. Now she's gonna flex that heel into her butt, flex that knee, and lower down under control. Coming back, we're going to lift, get that leg up as high as you can, extend the knee back out, and then lower under control. We're gonna do 5 reps from here. So lift, flex, lower down, coming back, lift, extend, and lower. One thing I do want to be aware of is not letting our knee travel too far forward. So we can almost use this front foot as a block to let us know if we are drifting. As a coach here, I can kind of guide her as we lift our leg, flex that foot up. I can feel if she's shifting one way or another, and then lower down, lift, extend it back out, and lower. We're gonna do 2 more as we lift, flex, parachute down under control, coming back, lift, extend, lower. Last one, lift, flex that knee, under control, nice and slow, lower. And then finishing up from here, lift, extend it back out, and then lower down under control. We're gonna go right back to those axial cars with that front leg. So she's gonna stack her legs, flex her knees in just a little bit, brace however she needs to, lifting that top leg up as high as she can, keeping the knee where it is. So again, find that landmark on the wall where it lines up, and then internally rotate that hip, drive that foot to the ceiling, pause, and then externally rotate back down, making sure that knee is staying exactly where it is. And we're gonna do 5 reps this time as we internally rotate back up, pause for a 1/1000, externally rotate back down, internally rotate back up, externally rotate close, 2 more, internally rotate open, externally rotate close, last one, internally rotate, get a little bit more if you can, externally rotate back down, and then lower that leg, cross the leg in front, extend that bottom leg out, set your position, set your yoga block, 5 more adduction hovers on this side. So again, we're going to lift, drive that knee, that foot up towards the butt, lower down under control, lift, extend that leg straight out, and then lower. Second rep, lift it up, flex that knee in, lower down under control, lift, extend back out, and lower. Third rep now, lift, flex, lower, lift, extend, and then right back down. Last 2 now, lift, flex that foot, really drive that heel in, lower down under control, lift back up, extend back out, and lower. Last one on this side, lift, flex, drive that heel in, lower down under control, lift, extend, and lower. Switching sides now. We're gonna roll right onto that left side. Let's have you shift this way just a little bit and switch my side as well. So again, stacking the knees, slight bend, working off of this top leg. She's gonna drive that whole leg up as high as she can. Find whatever position is comfortable for her head. If she needs to kind of reach out and support herself, if she needs to support herself right down, whatever it may be, finding that marker on the wall. Find where your knee is lined up to. We're gonna start by internally rotating, driving that foot up, and then close it back down, externally rotate. Second rep, internally rotate, making sure that knee's not dropping, and then externally rotate back down. 1 more on this first round, internally rotate open, pause, externally rotate back down, and then lowering that front leg down in front of our bottom leg, grabbing our yoga block, thank you, making sure that leg is straight out. And then as we work on this side, we're going to adduct, lift that leg as high as you can, flex that foot in, lower down under control, coming back out, lift, extend, and lower. And then coming back again, lift, flex it in, lower down under control, lift, extend back out, and lower, adjusting if you need to. Third rep, lift it up, flex it in, lower down, coming back, lift, extend that leg, parachute down under control. 2 more on this side, on this set, lift, drive that heel in again, making sure that knee's not kicking too far forward as we lower down, and then coming back, lift, extend that leg, lower down under control. Last one, lift, drive that foot, that knee up, flex it in, lower down under control, and finish it up, lift, extend, and lower. Working through our second set of these 2 moves on this side. Slight bend in the knees and the hips, find that position of comfort, drive that front leg up, open up that leg, find that spot where that knee is on that wall. Do not let that knee touch my hand as we internally rotate, and then externally rotate, keeping that knee up nice and high, good. Internally rotating back up, externally rotating back down. We're doing 5 reps on this round. Internally rotating, externally rotating, making sure those hips are staying square too. And then internally rotating back up, externally rotating back down. Last one, internally rotate, and finally externally rotate, close it down, and lower down. placing that front leg out in front, extending that bottom leg straight out as we finish up with our 5 adduction hovers. So now we're going to lift that bottom leg, flex that knee, lower down under control, coming back, lift, extend, and lower. Second rep, lift, flex that knee in, lower down, lift, extend out, and lower. Kick that leg back a little bit. There we go. Good. Third rep, lift, flex it in, lower down, lift, extend, staying off our yoga block, and lower. 2 more. Lift, flex it in, lower down, lift, extend it out, lower. Last one. Lift that leg up as high as you can, flex that knee, drive that heel towards that butt, lower down, lift, kick that foot out, straighten that leg, and lower down to finish up that section. Finishing up this class, we have another 2-move circuit. We're going to start in a quadruped position. We don't need yoga block anymore, but we do need a slider if you are playing along at home. If you are on a carpet, some kind of a plate or a frisbee typically slides really well. If you're on a hardwood floor, a towel is another really good option, or just these valve sliders. Anything really that can move freely is a really good option. We're going to start, like I said, in a quadruped position, hands and knees. So working a little bit more on this abduction, we're going to be doing some lift off. So she's going to take her left leg, extend it straight out towards me, and we're going to go foot on flat on the ground. So left leg kicked out, yep. So with these ones, what we're going to be doing is making sure our back stays as still as possible as we lift that outstretched leg, foot up off the ground. So set your position. Make sure everything is nice and engaged. We're going to take an inhale, set that brace, and we're going to lift that leg, hold it for a 1/1000, and then lower down under control. Second rep, inhale, set the brace, lift, and lower. Third rep, inhale and lift. Core stays nice and tight, and lower. Third rep. Inhale and lift, and lower down. 2 more. Inhale and lift that leg as high as you can, and lower down. Last one. Inhale and lift, and lower down under control. She's going to bring that left knee back under into a quadruped position. We're going to come up into a kneeling position, tall kneeling. We're going to grab our slider. She's going to go ahead and extend that right foot out, placing the slider underneath that front right foot. I like to make sure, especially if you're on these ones, that her foot's kind of right in the middle. And so what we're going to be doing is some kinetic stretching from this position. So keeping the chest up nice and tall. She's going to go ahead and slide that foot out as far as she can and feel comfortable coming back. And then she's going to think about pulling herself back up. So if there's a string in her head, I'm pulling her back up to the top. She's going to go ahead and slide that leg out, get a little stretch, and then pull herself back up to the top. Slide that foot out under control as far as she can. Chest stays up nice and tall, and then pull herself back up. We're going to go 2 more. Slide out. And then use those legs, squeeze them together to return back up. Last one on this side. Slide. And then zip yourself back up to the top. Leaving that right where it is, we're going to do 1 more set on each side. So we can go ahead and place the right knee back down, drop back down to that quadruped position, extending that left leg out. Inhale, set our position, and then lift that foot up off the ground. Hold it for a 1 Mississippi, lower back down under control. Second rep, lift, pause, lower back down. Third rep, lift, pause, 1 Mississippi, lower. 2 more on this side, lift, pause, lower back down. Last one, we're going to add a little extra hold on this one. Inhale and lift, Hold it for a 3, 2, 1. Lower back down. Go ahead and tuck that knee back under. Extend that right leg back out. Find your slider. Again, chest stays up nice and tall. Really reach that foot out as we slide out under control, making sure that we can come back, and then zip yourself back up to the top. And then slide it right back out. Get a nice little gentle stretch, and then squeeze those legs, come on back. Again, we're doing 5 more on this side, and then we'll repeat on the other side to finish up. Come back up. Extend on out, making sure that we don't hit the point of no return. Come on back. We got 1 more. Slide out under control. And come on back to that starting position. So we can go ahead, tuck both feet back under, drop back down into a quadruped position. Extend that right knee out as we move onto our opposite side, starting with those lift-offs. So again, core stays nice and tight. Inhale, set the position, lift that foot, pause for 1,000, lower back down. Second rep. Cramping's common on these ones. And inhale and lift, pause, lower back down. Third rep, lift, hold it, and lower. 2 more. Lift that leg. Keep that core nice and tight. Lower down under control. And inhale and lift. Pause. Lower down. 1 more. Inhale and lift. Hold it. And lower back down. Bringing that right knee back under. Finding that slider on the left. Chest stays up nice and tall. Finding that point, you can come back and then zipping yourself back up to the top. Getting a nice little stretch. And then using both legs to return. So we want to think about just kind of squeezing both legs to drive ourselves right back up for this third rep as we slide it on out. And then come on back. Extend on out. Come on back. That was 4, right? All right. Last one on this side. And right back. Pulling that left knee under. Straightening out that right leg. Setting that position for 5 more lift-offs on this side. So inhale and lift that leg. Hold it for 1,000. Lower back down under control. Making sure that core, that back stays nice and tight. Inhale and lift. 1 Mississippi. Lower back down. Inhale and lift for rep number 3. Pause. Lower. Last 2. Inhale and lift. Hold it. Lower back down. Last one, we're going to add a little bit of a hold. Inhale, lift. Hold it for a 3, 2, 1, and lower back down. Finishing up this class, this section, with our slider kinetic stretches. Chest is up nice and tall. Slide that leg out, and then pull yourself back up to the top. Slide that leg out, number 2. And zip yourself back up. Third rep, out under control. Back nice and smooth. 2 more to finish up. Out under control. And come on back. And our last one to finish. Slide it out. And zip yourself back up to finish up class. Nice work.